Hello and welcome to Books and Beyond. I'm your host, Jimmy Bennett. Today, first I want to, my show, Books and Beyond, so far I've highlighted local authors, which is, part of my goal. I like to highlight any kind of local talent, people that have day jobs but do creative things in their off time that are interesting to everybody. I myself am a professional chef, but I've written published two books, The Case of the Flying Corpse and Accounts of William Gillette, both books historical mysteries set at Gillette's Castle in East Haddam. I have another book being edited now and working on another book because I'm just a glutton for punishment. But today I'm very pleased because we are going to go beyond the books. And I'll just give you a little background. About 2-3 weeks ago, I got an email or a text message from my sister-in-law who said that she had been to Ledyard and had visited the Nathan Lester House Farm and Tool Museum, which I didn't even know existed at the time. I was interested, so I called the museum and took a tour yesterday with my wife, and just could not believe what a hidden treasure this property was, and that I hadn't even known it. I drove by it, and I'm sure many people in town have just gone by it and don't even realize it's there and whatever. But it was just an incredible piece of property with rich history, and I met somebody very wonderful and nice, Rebecca Lindner. Welcome to our show, Rebecca. Rebecca is the caretaker of the property, and tell us a little bit about the property.
So the house was actually built in 1793 by Nathan Lester, who is the youngest son of Peter Lester, who he inherited the land from. Right now, we're about 136 acres. We have 3 miles of walking trails. We have the amazing formal gardens that the Ledyard Garden Club maintains. We have the house for tours, and we have the barn also has a large collection of farm tools and the dinosaur tracks.
Oh, the dinosaur tracks. I forgot about the dinosaur tracks. Yes, that was another surprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get started as caretaker?
I actually started to get interesting in more of the homesteading stuff, staying home with my kids. And I was actually on Facebook one night and found it on the Ledyard Community Forum and just made a comment saying that would be an amazing opportunity for my family, and a bunch of meetings later and I moved in.
That's great. That is just fantastic. You live there with your fiance and 4 children?
Yes.
And I mean, it must be a wonderful place for them to grow up. Just the grounds in the area, it's incredible. Now, tell us a little history about the Lesters.
So Nathan Lester married Suzanne Gallup, who was 14 years younger than him. They had one surviving daughter, Hannah, who then raised 9 children in the house and the property. And the back of the house where I actually live is actually where her husband built her for the 9 kids.
Oh, wow. Okay. 9 kids. Well, they had bigger families back then.
Yeah.
And, we had talked about this. It was just one of those kind of a coincidental things, but my mother is on a committee that heads up a farm a historical farm in East Hampton, Long Island. It's called the East Hampton Historical Farm, but it's known as the Lester Farm. And we had talked, whether or not there was a connection. We haven't quite made the connection yet, though I think if you go back far enough in history, it was probably some sort of thing. But it was interesting because one of her children actually...
William Larrabee, which is the son of Hannah Lester, became an Iowa governor. He had started a farm out there, and actually his employees wanted him to become governor, and he built his wife an amazing house out there, and they actually call it Montauk. And it's another museum.
Yeah, so there could be a connection there. We're going to look into that a little bit more, and maybe we'll have something for it the next time. So after the Lesters, how did the town end up acquiring this property?
So after Hannah Lester died, her husband Adam Larrabee lived there for a little while with his second wife. He then sold the Lester farm and moved up to Windham with his children. Then in I think it was 1902, the Graves Hill family bought the property, and Dr. Graves was actually an amateur botanist, so that's part of why we have all the amazing plants.
Oh, okay.
And the Graves Hill family donated the 11 acres around the tree to the town of Ledyard, and then the following year the town purchased the surrounding 100 acres.
Oh, okay. And so it's been in the town's care
Since the late 60s, early 70s?
late 60s, early 70s. Okay. And was there another family or anybody living there before you?
There's been many caretakers.
Oh, there has. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I didn't know that. But then again, like I said, this is one of those things that I have always, talk about, and I always encourage people to look around. If you see a little sign, check it out, see what it is. I was just blown away by the beauty of the property, the openness and stuff. And there's a couple of things which I remember from my childhood and that I think that people should remember. And one of them is the Ledyard Oak, which was on the property.
Yes.
And that was a massive oak tree. I'm not sure if it's probably one of the biggest. I'm not sure.
Yes, it was 21 feet in circumference and 70 feet tall, and the crown was 105 feet tall. Or 105 feet, yes.
That's incredible. And then I remember they have a picture at the museum, and you can't really understand the size unless you see the person standing next to it. It looks like an ant standing next to this tree.
Yes.
Now, that finally came down when?
I've been there about 2 years, and it came down in one of our October ice storms.
Yeah.
And it finally came down from having anything standing to now it's all on the ground.
Right. Well, it had to happen, but it was just an incredible. It's great. But there's still signs there. You can still see where the tree stood, right?
Yes, and there's still benches there. There's actually a room where the Pequots used to have their powwows around the base of the tree.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then when the Graves family bought the house, they also had sign-in books underneath the tree. So everyone would sign in when they'd come for their picnics. And actually, I discovered those books in a closet in the house, and now have them on display at the house.
Oh, nice. You were telling me about that. You said some of the naval officers, when the base was first being built.
Yeah, one of them wrote their name down in his full address and said, "Ladies, please correspond."
Perfect. That's my Navy man. And then on top of that, the dinosaur track was an interesting thing. That was donated from
Dinosaur State Park.
Right, which
They opened around the same time the town had gotten the property. So I'm not really sure on a lot of the history back that way, but I know they're from Dinosaur State Park.
Well, it's interesting. It was interesting to see. It's right there on the property. So, and another thing was you have a cutting from the charter oak.
Yes.
Which is a famous tree in the state, and now it's a full-grown tree. I don't know. It's probably 20, 25 feet high, 30 maybe.
I'm not sure how tall it is,
big.
But it's huge.
It's a lot bigger now, yeah. From a cutting, I was pretty surprised. Do you know any of the history of the charter oak?
I'm not as familiar with that.
Yeah.
I just know the
the only thing I remember is I think during the Revolutionary War, the state or somebody in the government hid the Connecticut charter in the oak tree, and that's where its fame came from. I believe it's near Hartford or something. I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think it is.
Yeah. So that's another thing we'll have to check on a little bit and stuff. And then, so like you had mentioned before, the beautiful gardens. I mean, just absolutely just wonderful with nice benches to sit. I mean, I could spend a day sitting out there looking at the flowers and the beautiful. And that's the Ledyard Garden Club maintains that for you, right?
Yes, they maintain that, and it's beautiful. We've had people have weddings in there. We've had somebody's having a baby shower in there. And then just people coming with pizzas to have a picnic is
Yeah.
always welcome.
That's nice. That is that. I said that to my wife yesterday. I said if I'd known it was this nice, I would have brought some food up and and sat down and ate up there. And then you have the time capsule, which
Yes.
I didn't know was up there, which is pretty interesting.
Yep, that's from 1976, and actually our electrician was in that class, so he comes to visit it once in a while.
That's great. Yeah, it's going to be open in 2076. I'm afraid I probably won't be able to see that, but it should be something. I love time capsules. I think that's a neat thing. Now the house is the house, when you walk in, it has a living room, a sitting room, a sick room, the kitchen. We had a picture of the kitchen. There's the picture of the kitchen. Well, as a professional chef, I was really interested in this. I've never done any hearth cooking, but it looked, everything's there to do it. And the beehive oven, which I have seen in some houses before, old houses in Nowak and stuff, but I'm thinking to myself, boy, it'd be nice to cook a pizza in that thing. And you've actually done some cooking in that, right?
Yes, I've done some cooking on that whole hearth. The beehive oven, I've done honey bread in there. I've done banana muffins with the kids. I've cooked all of Thanksgiving dinner on that hearth before.
Oh, wow. Really, you did?
Yes.
Wow. And how did did you like it? Came out well, I guess?
Some things came out better than others,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of burn it to learn it going on there.
Yeah.
But
I love that. Burn it to learn it. That's a great saying. You said that actually the kitchen got so hot at one point it melted the candles?
yes, I melted the candles off the ceiling trying to make enough hot coals to make the beehive oven cook the bread.
Wow. Well, at least you won't freeze in the winter, So there's a lot of nice artifacts in the house too. There's looms.
Yes, there are looms. We have a few original pieces to the Lester family. We have a lot of artifacts to do with the town of Ledyard, the families of Ledyard, the schools in Ledyard, and Gales Ferry, which was North Groton at one point.
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Is that right? Is that what it was called, North Groton?
Yes.
Oh.
And then it became Gales Ferry, and then it's part of Ledyard now.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was called North Groton. Is that from? I remember you told a story about a man who was wounded in the War of 1812.
Yes, Hannah Lester's husband, Adam Larrabee, who was a West Point graduate, was wounded in one of the battles during the War of 1812, and part of the big story is that he got shot in the chest, and he said that his heart belonged in North Groton or Gales Ferry with Hannah Lester. So then he left the military to come back to marry Hannah.
Oh, all right.
Yep. And then
Now you do some community things up there. I know the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts both have activities up there.
yes, the Boy Scouts do a lot of their Eagle Scout projects on the property, and we have another one, multi-tier Eagle Scout project starting very soon, which I'm extremely excited about. We also have benches they've made. We have picnic tables. Twice a year, one troop camps on the property, and the Girl Scouts have now started camping on the property. And we had Nathan Hale's school came last year with their entire third grade. And it was one of the first class field trips to the house in a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to expand that a little farther
Right.
to our surrounding towns.
Yeah. Well, that should. They should. That's history right there that they can touch and see and experience, which, I think is important as much as reading it in a book, Now, the other thing I wanted to go over was the farm museum, the barns. Tell us about that.
We have 3 original barns on the property. There were more barns on the property, but we are one of the highest points in Gales Ferry, and we have a high lightning strike.
Yeah.
We have a lot of them, and the other barns actually burned down, and so these are the only ones that made it. So one we have is the carpenter shop. which I've actually learned how to use some of those tools, the shave horse. And
What is the shave horse for? Just shaving blocks of wood, or?
they would make anything from shingles to wooden spoons,
Oh, okay.
with a drawing knife,
Yeah.
which I actually learned how to use down in Tennessee at the
Yeah.
Great Appalachians Homesteading Conference.
Oh, all right.
Eustace Conway from Mountain Men found out I was a museum caretaker and had to teach me a few things.
Oh, great.
So when I came back, I was like, we need to have this sharpened and this sharpened. So I started showing people some of that. In the larger barn, we actually have sleighs, milk wagons. We have a dog treadmill, which is very unique, I guess.
Yes, I saw that. Because I asked you what it was. I was looking at it. I was like, what was this for? And they actually used to use dogs to run the treadmill, and it would grind corn or whatever they were trying to grind up, right?
Yes.
You have a milk bottler, which I thought was pretty neat. You don't see that much anymore.
No, we don't see that
kind of
often.
things. And then they had the forge where I guess they did a lot of their own blacksmithing,
Yes.
which people did back then, which I thought was pretty amazing too. It's just I'm a big history buff, anyways. Obviously, I love history, and local history is really a passion of mine. I just think that too often we overlook what's right there. That's one of the things that I wanted to bring up was now where you're located. You're on the corner of Long Cove and
Vinegar Hill.
Vinegar Hill, and there's a sign that
Yes.
says the Nathan Lester Farm and Tool Museum.
Yes.
And there's a long driveway, and it was just one of those things. I can't even think of how many people just drove by that every day, or and just never really thought about.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
I lived a mile down the street, and until I found it on the Ledyard Community Forum, I had no idea it was there.
Right.
And now I've completely fallen in love with it.
And I can see that. You have 3.5 miles, 3.6 miles of hiking trails. Right
About
now?
that, yes.
Yeah. And it's beautiful woods. It's easy walk. That kind of thing. But you said that they might be acquiring more land, or not you, but somebody else.
I think the Connecticut Land Conservancy and Avalone are trying to acquire 200 acres that are adjacent to the Lester House property. And then there's Pine Swamp is on the other side of Vinegar Hill Road.
Okay.
And there's a connecting trail from our trails.
Oh, nice. See, that's this hiking is a big thing. People love to hike, and do they mountain bike up there? Do people ever bring their bikes up and mountain bike around?
Yes, people mountain bike up there. I have 2 kids that come every afternoon. We also have cross-country skiers because the grounds are open sunrise to sunset all year long.
Oh, I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw the sleighs, which I just thought were just cool, and one of dear to everybody that's got to shovel their driveway was the snowplow, the horse-driven snowplow, which it took me a while. I was looking at it, but it was Corey the one who said, "What's a snowplow?" I said,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, that's pretty incredible." I never thought about them snowplowing back then. I thought they just sort of trudged through it,
Yeah.
So it is just such a wonderful piece of property. It's and well maintained. Does the town take care? I know you take care of the house and some of the surrounding areas, right?
Yes, I take care of everything from the stone wall back toward the house.
Yep.
And I mow the garden, the formal gardens,
Okay.
and behind the barns. And then Public Works does everything in front of the front field, the quarter-mile front field.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good because that's a lot. You've got enough with 4 kids anyway. So, now do you? I imagine you encourage schools and stuff. Has anybody reached out to you or?
I know Nathan Hale School is planning on coming again this year, but I really hope that some of the other schools reach out to have tours also.
Yeah, it's and you can, we talked about this, if you get a permit, right, if you apply for a permit through the town, you could have functions on the grounds, right? Not
Yes.
in the house, but I mean, there's just beautiful fields and open areas with benches and lovely spots. But like you said, you've done weddings.
Baby showers, a gender reveal.
Yeah. Is there a fee for any of that, or?
I know the Historical District Commission has now instated a fee for that. I'm not exactly sure what the fee is because I'm just the independent contractor for the
Right,
town.
yeah.
So they make the decisions on what the permit costs are.
Yep.
But I do have the permits available at the house, and we have digital copies also for people to fill out.
Okay. Because it's I would encourage any organization, to have a picnic up there or something. I didn't realize the Indians used to do their festival up there, but it makes sense. I mean, it's just a wonderful piece of property. I can't. I was just flabbergasted. I'm sorry. I know I'm babbling, but I was. It was just one of those things. It's like you go down a road, all of a sudden you're like in another world. You're like, oh my God, it's unbelievably. And any plans for the museum in the future?
As of right now, I know the Historical Society has their Yuletide celebration in December. I think it's the first week in December. This year, since I had a baby this year, and we opened a little late,
Yeah.
I want to make the house a little more accessible to the public. So we'll be open until November 1st this year.
Okay.
Every weekend from Labor Day until November.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's and how many tours do you do, like on the weekend?
Some weekends I can have upwards of 50 people come for tours, and some weekends we're pretty slow, and those slow weekends are really good for the people that want to poke around and look through things
Right.
more and learn about each piece in the museum, since the Historical Society has made an incredible collection there.
Yes. Yes. And part of the reason, one of the things too, is I like about it is it's not so roped off. When you go to other museums or other homes and stuff, you know what I mean? There's ropes across the doorway you can look in, but you can't walk around. This is very accessible. You know what I mean? You can really look at things and it just gives you that sense when you touch a quilt that's 100 years old or.
Yes, and that's one thing I strive for, even to have kids come into the house, because being a mom of 4 and having an infant and then having 2 sons with autism, is being an autism mom. A lot of the time when we go places, people are afraid of my kids' behavior, and I don't want people to be afraid. I've had other parents come, and I realized it right off the bat what their child needed, and I handed her a piece of wool, and she was perfectly happy, and she did the whole tour just rubbing that wool, and it was
nice.
fantastic that she got to learn the history and
Wow.
be able to see the whole house just by holding a piece of wool to do it.
Wow, that is nice. And there was a few features of the house that just to me, I loved the wide boards, the thing, and you were explaining to me about the wide boards in the house real quick, because I just thought this was a interesting thing, was that in the front of the house the boards were narrow, but in the back of the house they were really wide. And why was that?
That was because before the war, everything was very much taxed, and the wood that was, I think it was approximately 17 inches wide, anything over that was considered the king's wood, which would have had to either be sent back to England or it was extremely taxed. So since back then they really didn't know what was going to happen, they would put the smaller wood at the front of the house, and the places that people wouldn't go as much, the kitchen in the back of the house or the upstairs bedrooms, had the wider boards.
Yep. Yeah. God bless us Americans, always looking for a way to get around the tax man. Now, the Yuletide celebration is a big celebration up there, right?
Yes.
And you told me that the Ledger Garden Club decorates the rooms.
Yes, they do an amazing job. I barely believed I lived there this year. When I'd open the museum door, it was just amazing. The greenery in every fireplace in the house, every windowsill, everything was decorated. Absolutely beautiful. And I actually kept it up for the entire month of December so that anybody can call for tours and bring their family by to see how beautiful the house looks like, all
That's
decorated
nice.
too.
That's beautiful.
And I plan to do that again this year too.
Now, one quick thing, when you do the tours, you don't have like certain times you do tours, or when people come, do you just say, okay, and give the tour? Or how do you work that?
So I am open, it's usually Memorial Day through Labor Day, 1 to 4:30 Saturdays and Sundays, and 2 to 4 Tuesdays and Thursdays. And people can just show up and I'll give them a tour. If you don't want to listen to me to walk around and talk, there is cards around the house explaining what people want to see and the collection. And just if you show up, we'll make it work.
All right.
It's
Well, that's nice. It's very nice. It's I thought it was very casual. I love the tour that me and my wife took. There's so much more, but I'm just going to tell you to go up there and check it out. And also one quick thing, because Corey mentioned this yesterday, and I wanted to get into it a little bit more, but he said the Boy Scouts have a big Thanksgiving celebration up there?
Yes, they have their community Thanksgiving, I think it is. And I know all of their Boy Scout pack, from the little guys to the big guys. They fry turkeys out there. They have an amazing celebration. I know a lot of town council came last year. The mayor
Is it open
came.
to the public, or is it invite?
I am not exactly sure how they
Yeah.
work it that way. I know it's not something I advertise for them. I know
Right.
they do it on their own.
Yeah. It could be a lot of 500 people show up.
Yeah.
Because I thought about that. I said, well, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a bad Thanksgiving at all. But do they set up like tents outside, or?
The Boy Scouts actually, they do their camp out and they do everything outside. Last year it snowed for them, so it was amazing to see them play with
Wow.
all the snowballs and everything, the boys
Yeah.
out there. And then they set up next to the driveway with the long tables and
Okay.
picnic tables.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's something to look into too. And what are your hopes in the future?
I hope in the future that we can continue educating the kids about our history and really have an understanding of our history at all ages.
Right. Right. I can't tell you how strongly I feel about this. I think that even people my age, should know more about the history of their town and where they came from. But I think that it's going to help future generations greatly if they know where they came from and how things were done and how they've changed over the years. And I just think it's a great place to take your family or whoever. And even if you don't take a tour, if you just walk around the grounds, I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. Interesting. I don't know what else to, I don't know how much, I can't tell you how much I'd like to see people really take advantage of it. Now, it's free.
Yes.
The museum in the park is free. There's no anything, but you do take donations, which I strongly encourage because you have to maintain the place and it needs to be kept up, and it's well kept. But I'm sure there's always more that you have to do. All right, well that's it for today. Thank you so much. This has been Books and Beyond. And until next time, I'm Jim Bennett, your host. Take care.